this morning, but we'll see. All right, so my big fear would be that I don't actually have any audio. So this is a bit of a dry run here. The one thing I want to do moving forward is more live stream. There we go. Okay. One thing I want to do moving forward is live streaming, and so this is a dry run. Okay, now I can hear myself. Okay. Assuming no one would be here to tell me whether I had audio or not. Yeah, man, I have been thinking about what to do next for this channel. And I've really enjoyed making content. We're coming up on a year. I've made about 100 videos. It's 102 videos as of today. I released a short earlier today, so we'll see what the algorithm does with that. I'm not sure if posting a short and a live stream on the same day is a good, strategy or not. But man, yeah, I've really enjoyed it. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the 1,000, I think 60 people as of today who have found the Strange Theology podcast in one way, shape, or form, whether it be a short, whether it be long form content. Thank you. I knew it couldn't just be me. I knew there was more people out there interested in theology and maybe even some of the sort of fringe, strange stuff. And I like that stuff. There's a point where you say, well, that's not the important stuff when it comes to strange theology. When it comes to theology, the strange stuff should be sort of left to the side, and let's really focus on the more like sort of traditional orthodox, the stuff that has been really like well thought out over time, the stuff that we can be sure of. But I wonder if that's a misconception, right? Because the theology should humble us. There shouldn't really... Anytime somebody claims to be an expert in theology, I would just say, be very skeptical of that person, because I think that person maybe has a small view of God. So there's always going to be something about theology when it's done well that is a bit strange to us, that's a bit odd, that's a bit mysterious. And I like that. That's one of the things that draws me into theology. That is one of the things that I've really enjoyed incorporating into this podcast, because I like Christian. I'm a Christian. I look at the world from a biblical Christian worldview, and it can be encouraging. I follow some Christian YouTubers or something like that, but for the most part, it feels like it's we've just got kind of a lot of rehearsed things that we're okay saying, and we don't want to sound like heretics, so we don't want to take a risk when it comes to theology sometimes. So I really enjoy that. Thank you for giving me some philosophical immunity as I go through the content on this channel, because I will challenge myself, and I hope that that's encouraging to you. I hope that you can challenge yourself. I hope that you can challenge me. That has been something that is really encouraging. I don't know that I anticipated it going into this channel to that degree. And so, I've really appreciated how this channel has shaped me in my thinking and given me some, boldness, courage, maybe, to really ponder the things that, maybe I haven't given myself permission to in the past. I'm a pretty conservative type of person. I'm a sort of reformed in my theology, and I appreciate the reformed tradition for this little phrase that I heard at one point, which is, we are reformed and always reforming. Okay, so what that means is, and we're coming up on the eve of Reformation Day here, so like what the reformers were doing was they weren't trying to like settle theology per se. They were trying to settle some things. but all the while knowing that once we have those things settled, there will be more that needs to be settled. And so there's always this sense that we are reformed, we're reforming, we are constantly pursuing God, pursuit of the knowledge of God. And that has been really fun. So thank you for being a part of this channel. Thank you, because I know that that's not just me. There's people out there that aren't afraid to go into some of the sort of fringe, spooky stuff when it comes to theology, and even admit that even within sort of normal evangelical circles, that some of our doctrine is strange. I mean, think of the virgin birth. I mean, we take that for granted. We take that story for granted. We celebrate it every Christmas season or whatever, but nobody thinks like, okay, so God got a girl pregnant, that's, take a step back and think about what that might sound like to somebody who's not raised in that tradition. Or the Trinity, for example. I mean, that's a hard doctrine, right? So there's some stuff that I know that, people appreciate going into that. And I appreciate talking to people that like theology. I think there's some of the most interesting people, whether they're Christians or not. I find these conversations to be the most interesting. So thank you for being a part of that, being a part of this process. And the other thing is just to sort of pull back the curtain a little bit on this channel to look at sort of where we've come from, and where we are going. Like I said, I want to do more live streams because that's one way to engage with people who find theology interesting. I want to do that more. Those are my people, and live streaming, I guess, is one of the ways that we can interact with each other more organically, more naturally. I don't know what it would be. I'm always encouraging people to leave comments in these videos because one of the goals of this channel is to create dialogue. Whether you be a Christian, whether you be Reformed, whether you be, whatever. I don't know why Reformed is the only one that can come to me right now. I wasn't raised in the church, so that's one thing about me. Denominations and sort of church history sometimes gets a little fuzzy for me because I just wasn't raised in that tradition. I got saved when I was 16. And it was a process for me. It was a process of reading scripture and asking what I thought at the time were good questions. I think they still are good questions. And so, whether you come at the topic of theology from a Christian background, from any background, you could be atheist, agnostic, or from any religion or worldview, I find these conversations to be very interesting. I would love more than anything to just sit down and sit across the coffee shop table with somebody who doesn't agree with everything I believe about a God or the nature of humanity, because I always learn, and that's again, one of the beautiful things about theology, and one of the reasons why I would caution people to be wary of experts in theology is that there's always more to learn. There's always more to learn. And so even though I can be kind of conservative, there's certainly some things that are going to be very hard for me to change my ideas on because I'm kind of settled in some things. That doesn't mean I'm not open to hearing other people. And so yeah, anyway, that's, live streaming is one of the ways that we can engage with one another. And I hope that this Strange Theology podcast would not be a sort of a Christian echo chamber. It's funny, part of the experience of creating this channel, and I was a little nervous about it to begin with, was have I sort of put myself in a weird position where non-Christians are going to think I'm way too Christian, but Christians are going to think that I'm way too out there or something like that, and that we wouldn't find that community that's somewhere in between where we could have Christians and non-Christians together discussing what I think is the most meaningful topic, which is the topic of God. What comes into your mind when you think about God is the most important thing about you. And so, that's why the first video I posted 9 months ago was from A.W. Tozer, from that quote from A.W. Tozer. I set about, just initially, I have no social media presence really, and I just set about, I guess it was 9 months ago, just making some videos because what I really wanted to do is I wanted to make this video. Joe Rogan and Adam Curry. I listened to this podcast. I'll explain in a second how I got to this podcast. But I knew I wanted to make a video engaging with and dialoguing with the content of this Joe Rogan and Adam Curry interview. I didn't want to create a reaction video. I don't find those to be terribly interesting. Again, I'm here trying to create dialogue, not create an echo chamber where everybody just agrees with me. That's, I think, what a reaction video does. It really strengthens and solidifies people who already agree with you. That's fine, but that's not my goal. I want to challenge myself. I want to challenge other people. And so when I make these videos, I really do try to not be making a reaction video, but more a video of dialogue. Part of my background is in classical studies, classical theology. And so I think of Socrates and I think of Plato. I never know who to credit with the dialogues, but obviously Plato is writing about Socrates. Socrates is the character. He's the one driving the dialogue, but he always has interlocutors. That's just a fancy, strange word. That means dialogue partners, people that you are engaging in dialogue with. And that, in a sense, what Plato is doing in the form of a book, we are doing in the form of a podcast. So I'm pulling ideas from Joe, from Adam, and I'm inserting my own ideas where I think that they are appropriate. And I know that can be annoying for me. This is one of the challenges that I had moving into this content and creating this content, was doing it in a way that doesn't sound too much like I'm interrupting the people that are already having the dialogue. So I understand that. So for those of you who that drives you nuts, I apologize. But that's the nature of dialogue. I mean, if you're having a in-person live dialogue, you're going to find that you might interrupt each other every once in a while. And so thank you for, again, giving me the grace there. But I wanted to do this Adam Curry episode, but I knew leading into it, I should, if I was being a good dialogue partner, that I should define some of my terms for anybody who might find my videos. And so leading into Adam Curry, I decided, I needed to kind of set the foundation. That's what this A.W. Tozer video is. So as much as Tozer sort of creates a foundation for us to think about God, I don't actually engage with a lot of Tozer content. Maybe I should. I rely actually more on Francis Schaeffer. So that's another dialogue partner that we have here on the Strange Theology podcast. But what Tozer has this quote: "What comes into your mind when you think about God is the most important thing about you." I really, truly believe that. Schaeffer has a quote that says, "There's a flow to history and culture rooted in the way people think." So if we put those two together, that kind of forms the foundation for this podcast. There's a flow to history and culture rooted in the way people think about God. Because what comes into your mind when you think about God is the most important thing about you. It will determine how you interact with one another, how you behave, and all your final decisions in life. It really will. I say that, and I hear the people in the back of my mind, well, I don't believe in God. Exactly. Whatever comes into your mind when you think about God is the most important thing about you. So if what comes into your mind is, oh, God is a fairy tale, that is the most important thing about you. It will determine your morality. It will probably even determine where you go to college or other things like that. It will determine how you order your life and how you interact in a community of people. This is sort of a side note, but it was something I was thinking about today of whether or not I should have a strange politics channel. Because, you think, okay, well, does theology and politics, should they mix? And of course they should. That would be my opinion. That would be my thought. That's how I understand theology. If theology is not important enough for you to influence how you order society, then I think your theology is is not strong enough. I think I would challenge you to have a more robust theology. But of course, what comes into my mind when I think about God is going to help me answer the question of what is a person? What is society? What is a community? What is a family? Because if God created the person, or if God created marriage or the community or the home, then that's going to radically change how I view marriage, how I view sexuality, how I view the home, how I view community and politics. I'm going to be very different than somebody who approaches that conversation from an atheistic or an agnostic standpoint, or even a Hindu or what have you, right? So there's a point at which I will probably bring in some more content that seems political. I've already done a few shorts that YouTube really did not like, and they were Schaeffer, dealing with the manipulative authoritarian elite, absolutes for society. When there is no God, how do you? What is your foundation for society? So and YouTube did not really like, at least this manipulative authoritarian elite video from Schaeffer. Some other, so there has been times when I do some stuff that is a little bit more political, but because I see those two things as being very closely related. I mean, I think theology is related to how we think about the world, and so of course it will become that. But anyway, I would love to get your thoughts on that. I mean, should we keep that content separate from the main channel? I don't know. Let me know. Maybe that's something that could come up in the live stream. But of course, the thing that would be the most obvious application today, I mean, this is October 18th, 2023, is the Israel-Palestine conflict right now. I mean, just think, like, that is not just a political battle that's going on. That is a worldview battle. That is a battle of differing theological positions that cause two groups to orientate themselves in two radically different ways. So yes, theology flows into every aspect of life, which is why I think it is the most important thing that we can be discussing. So once again, thank you for being here. I have really, really enjoyed making this content. Today's live stream, I'm gonna be here for about 30 minutes. I think that's probably a good time frame, at least for now, as we get started. So thank you for being here. If you're watching this on a replay, again, check out some of the playlists that I have. Share the show with your friends. There's a sense at which I really love YouTube, and this is another thing that is part of pulling back the curtain and kind of looking at, what am I doing here? What are we doing here with this podcast? Is I really do see a strong correlation between the printing press and the Reformation. And of course, this is something that happened within Christianity, where the Catholic Church, the universal Christian church at the time, sort of universal. I mean, we have to give some credit there to the Orthodox Church as well. But it needed to be corrected. There was some stuff that needed to be corrected. And so these reformers, I mean, people had tried to reform the church at the time, and it wasn't as successful. But when the printing press came around and the reformers really started using the printing press, that is, there's some debate here, but certainly some historians would say that is one of the reasons why the Reformation was a success eventually, was because reformers started using the printing press. I see YouTube and whatever, you could just say generically just digital media. Of course, there's an audio version of this podcast. Of course, it's the long form content that I have on there. So any of the clips that I make for YouTube, any of the shorts that I make for YouTube don't show up on the podcast, but you can go over to, let's see, Spotify. Yeah, Spotify. What else? Okay, there's the links. I'm looking. Bear with me. Yeah, Spotify, Castbox. Where else? I think I want to look into Fountain. I want to put my stuff on Fountain. But anyway, there is an audio version of it. So if you're just chilling in your car and you're like commuting and you don't want to have YouTube playing, there is that as well. So I think just utilizing YouTube, I'll say that kind of generically, even though I kind of, there's a whole sphere of digital media that I think, does deserve some credit there. I think YouTube is a great platform because of the various ways in which you can communicate. So I can do videos, long and short. So I've got hour-long podcast episodes, and I've got short little clips, 10 to I try to keep them around 10 minutes. You can do shorts, and the shorts get, sometimes they get lots more views or whatever, and so you get your message out there. And again, think of the reformers and the printing press. People needed to be aware of what was going on, and the printing press was a way of getting that message out there. And then, of course, live stream. This is going to be interesting. We're gonna kind of experiment with this live stream thing. So, yeah, okay, good. I need like a third monitor for live streaming. So I've got my laptop over here, which, yeah, maybe that's annoying. Where was I? What were we talking about? So, I'm going to go back to this Joe Rogan, Adam Curry episode, because I knew we were on to something here. It was actually the Joe Rogan, the thing that got me started. All right, so you're here. We're 22 minutes in, and I'm finally getting to the thing that got me started. Not that whatever. Anyway, was an episode between Joe Rogan, Graham Hancock, and Randall Carlson talking about the whole Younger Dryas comet impact season of the globe, and they were touching on this global catastrophe and this worldwide flood, and they just were getting so close to kind of the biblical narrative, and they would get close, and then they would kind of be like, oh yeah, like the Bible and Noah's flood and like the Epic of Gilgamesh, there's all these other, and they would just lump the Bible into all these other flood myths. Now, I'm going to use the term myth more in a classical sense. I won't go into too much detail there, but when I say myth, I don't necessarily mean something that's made up, a fairy tale, or a lie. I think there's a lot of truth, and so a myth is I think of myths as old, ancient stories, and I think there's probably a lot more truth in them than the modern mind gives credit to. That's all I'll say for now, but I'll use terms like myth and poetry more in the classical sense, and I don't mean that they're not true, but they would just lump the Bible into some of these other stories in a way, sort of discrediting the Bible, which a lot of people do. And I think people do that because they don't fully understand what the Bible is. They just think it's a myth, and I'm doing air quotes here, like all the other myths. And I think that's a small view of what the Bible is and how the Bible has impacted human history. So there's that. But I'm listening to Graham Hancock and Joe Rogan and Randall Carlson, and I'm going, man, if I could just be in that room. I would have loved to be in that room while they were talking about this. I would have loved for Michael Heiser to have been in that room while they were talking about that. I would have just loved for somebody to bring some context there of just sort of the Christian viewpoint, maybe. I don't know. And that's just me. That's me. And then I realized, I guess I kind of can. I guess I could, if I wanted to, I could take clips and I could engage in a dialogue with Joe Rogan, with Graham Hancock. And as I was thinking about that, that's when the Adam Curry episode dropped. So in my mind was already this idea of, what if I could have a podcast that would allow me to engage, not just in sort of the fringe, strange theology type of stuff that I tend to be interested in, but engage with theology as it comes to me from an unlikely place, when it comes to me from a strange place. And then I heard this Adam Curry episode, and Adam Curry goes into his testimony about how he came to faith in Jesus. And I thought, okay, maybe that's a sign, maybe it's nothing, but I'm going for it. And, initially, because I have no social media presence, I think I might have shared it on like Facebook or something like that. But when you have nothing, when you have 3 videos and you have no presence, and then you see a group of people. At this point, that video has 1,400 views from 8 months ago. But it was when it hit like 500 to 700 views that I thought, yeah, there's a lot of people out there who are thinking the same thing. They're probably listening to Joe Rogan, going, "Man, I wish I was in the room during that podcast. I wish I could just kind of give my 2 cents." And so I thought, well, here's a way that we can do that. Here's a way that we can engage in maybe a cultural phenomenon. I've started calling it a spiritual awakening. I think that people are certainly waking up, becoming more sensitive to the need for God, maybe, however they define that. But also, I think that there is a point at which sort of modern rationalism is shown to be not enough. Now, as much as I believe in rationality and human reason, I think it's a gift from God, it has its limitations. We need God to reveal himself to us. The human mind is finite and cannot, by itself, beginning from itself alone, and this is Schaeffer's point, humanity beginning just from themselves alone. Without God, we cannot think our way out of all of the problems that are going on, because I think one problem that we are facing is a spiritual battle. It's rooted in our disobedience to God. It's rooted in our disharmony with God. And so as we look around in the world and we think, oh my gosh, how could all of this be happening? Of course, the answer there is a theological one. It has to do with what comes into our minds when we think about God. And if we just look at the world as matter in motion, then we are not looking at the world the way it truly is. And so any ideas that we have based off of that presupposition or that idea are going to be flawed, and they're going to lead us into deception. They're going to lead us into lies. They're going to lead us off the path of wisdom. They're going to lead us off the path of truth and into sort of the deception that is similar to the Garden of Eden. If you want to read Genesis chapters 1, 2, and 3, that would give you a lot of context for what's going on right now. So there's that. That's a little bit of behind the curtain of just sort of where this thing came from, and where are we going. Well, again, I want to incorporate more live streams, and part of the reason is, if you're familiar at all with the Y-Files, I think this is a great channel. They're not Christian or anything like that. They do touch on some stuff that would be interesting. I've incorporated some of their videos already in a C.S. Lewis. It was the bear with me here. There's a couple of videos. C.S. Lewis and simulation theory. I got on a simulation theory kick there for a little while, and the Y-Files did a video on that. But also, Doug Wilson was talking about C.S. Lewis's Ransom trilogy and the medieval cosmology. And again, this is where I think sort of modernity has limited us. If we just reduce everything down to the material world, we're going to fail to see we're not going to have a full picture of reality, which is what we need. I think in order to do that, we have to have revelation. We have to have God reveal that to us. So I found this to be fascinating. Let's see. I think I did 2 or 3 anyway. I've enjoyed the Y-Files, and what they do is they will put out a video that's usually 40 minutes long or so. But then they'll do a live stream right after that, and they'll talk a little bit about the video. Now, I think one of the reasons I like this, excuse me, this is the danger of live streaming. One of the reasons I like this is that there's always stuff that doesn't make it to the video that we can talk about more. And that's particularly true when it comes to theology. I've struggled in some of these videos that I have made because I'm trying to put too much in them. I'm trying to say too much for fear that, there's not, maybe I won't be able to say this, or I'll forget it, or I won't be able to put it into another video. And so there's always more to be talked about. I'd like to do that with this community here on Strange Theology, because I'm looking at, actually the next video that I'm going to be doing is the Joe Rogan, Brian Muraresku interview that he did recently. Muraresku wrote a New York Times bestselling book called The Immortality Key, and it's the subtitle is something about a secret religion with no name. So it's sort of like has this like sort of Gnostic kind of feel to it. And I know Joe has mentioned that book a few times. So in the back of my mind, I always thought, I'm going to have to engage with this at some point. And then, of course, he interviewed Brian Muraresku, I think last week or something like that. I went on vacation, so I wasn't able to sort of jump on it. And that's the other thing as far as pulling back the curtain. I work full time. I've got a wife. I've got 3 kids. I've got a little homestead that we've started. And so as much as I try to be consistent in posting videos, sometimes I'm not able to do that. I really do feel motivated to make these videos. I have a passion to make these videos. I feel called to make these videos. But at the same time, I'm not a full-time YouTuber, and I don't think I would want to be that. I certainly think that this could be a great tool for ministry or for theology, just like the printing press was. But yeah, so that's what I'm looking at doing this interview with Joe and Brian Muraresku, and I know there's going to be stuff that I'm not able to go into full detail. So I think what I'll do is I'll post the videos on Monday. That's my goal. My long-form content will come out on Monday. And then by Wednesday, which is kind of my real day off, I will do a live stream sort of following up from that episode. So we'll give the episode 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, and then sometime Wednesday around noon, I will hop on, do a live stream. I'll kind of talk through some of my approach to whatever the topic may have been, bring up anything that maybe didn't make it through the, what do they call it? Like make it off the cutting room floor, so to speak. And that's what the Y-Files does. It's really fun. And then, the sort of community gets involved. Now, of course, the Y-Files has 2.7 million subscribers. We're not there yet, friends. We're not there yet. Probably might never be. YouTube will shut us down well before that. But as a side note, as much as I really do think YouTube is a strong platform for communicating ideas, I understand that they're not maybe as interested in promoting content, particularly Christian content or theological content. And so if you are here at this point, thank you. And I would say just share this channel with your friends, people that you know, other Bible nerds or theology nerds, or anybody that might be seeking or wondering or questioning. I don't necessarily deal with kind of like the apologetics side of Christian theology, though I certainly can. There are lots of good apologetics channels out there, and so I try to keep this content more dialogue-y, less debate-y. So yeah, share this with people that you know would benefit from it. I hope you've enjoyed this. And again, here I am. I know there's more I could have said during this live stream, but I do not want to ramble. So with that, love ya, and I will catch you in the next one.